and I'm actually this is the first time I'm looking at it since I wrote it on a previous stream, and so we're going to give it its first edit. I'm going to change the title for now to I Bark the Rain. Don't know if that's a lot better or not, but I think that may be the title we're going to go with. So I'm going to read through this, and again, each time I find a typo or something that I think I can improve, then I'll make some changes to it. Definitely an interesting story. No idea where you were going with it. Can't wait to see the finished story. Thanks, man. I feel pretty good about it, considering that I really didn't have a clue what I was going to do with it. I feel like it has a solid ending. Whether that's the way the story goes or not, it may be what it is. So sometimes that's just how it works. But this story is going to be I Bark the Rain, and a little bit of a fantasy story here, maybe a little bit of horror, I'm not sure, so we'll see what you think and see maybe if I can improve this short story. It's a little over 1,200 words, so not a long one. Luma the dog charged up the muddy slope to the bluff that overlooked the interstate running east and west across the state of Tennessee and out of the tiny town of Bucksnort. That sentence may be a little long, but I'm going to leave it. Tamara Reese ran as fast as her small legs and rubber boots would carry her after her dog. She screamed for the dog to stop. Tamara was young enough to still believe in magic, but old enough to know when there was trouble. Her heart beat hard inside her yellow slicker. The fear and even a little anger were hard to translate as she was out of breath and still had a long way to go. Was she afraid her dog might fall? Was she afraid for the storm, for her parents, for herself, out in this growing storm? Let's change that, because I've used storm twice. Out in this pouring rain. Okay, that works. Luma would never let her get hurt, but now Luma was mad and paying no attention to her human. I need to change her here. Would not let Tamara, let's say little Tamara, be clear about who our protagonist here is. Little Tamara. Lightning cracked the sky in dead white brightness. The rain was thick and heavy. It hurt her head through her hood, and the driving noise stung her ears. Luma barked ahead, and thunder crashed. Tamara fell to her knees, painting them and her hands in sticky gray-brown mud. She couldn't possibly be in any more trouble today, so she crawled upward through the slop, screaming Luma's name over and over under the roar of the storm. Rivulets of muddy water dug away at the saturated ground of the eroding slope. Near the bluff, too near, much too near for Tamara's mother not to faint if she could see her daughter in that moment, the young girl reached for the dog's drenched fur. Tamara thought of her mother a little, but thought of what it would be like to fall from this great height even more. Mom wouldn't see, though. She did not have powers like Luma, and Mom's eyes were swollen shut shortly after Dad drove off in his rig. Then the dog had broken out of the house, and Tamara was afraid of what her dearest companion might do. He didn't mean it, Tamara bawled. I'm not sure if that's the right kind of bawled, but I'm going to leave it for now. Tamara bawled as her fingers passed wet through the dog's form without grabbing anything solid. Luma showed her teeth and folded her ears back flat against her skull as her pale blue eyes spotted the truck climbing up the slow lane headed west toward Memphis. The dog growled and thunder rumbled in angry harmony. "You stop it," Tamara screamed. "You be a good dog and stop this right now." Luma paid no mind. She was normally obedient, but this was a bad storm, and somewhere deep down, Tamara felt that her dog was still trying to protect her. "I'm not hurt," the girl said. "He didn't hurt me. He was mad after arguing with Mama. He didn't mean to push me down. If he wasn't in a hurry to leave for his trip, he would have helped me up. He would have told Mama he was sorry." Luma barked and lightning flashed with thunder right on its heels. Tamara knew. You could see how far away a lightning strike was by counting between the light and the sound. Let's say that was a thing her daddy taught her during one of his better moods. When they were both, no, when, let's say, when the light and sound were on top of each other, she supposed that meant the lightning was on top of you too. She should not have been outside. Luma barked some more and shook her whole body with the force of her anger directed at the back of Daddy's truck. Each sound raised the intensity of the storm until she could hardly see the road any more. Only the lights on the rig showed its progress. She did see trees fall on both sides of the highway. Last spring there had been a large storm. By coincidence, it was when Dad had been drunk and angry again, throwing Luma outside, where she scratched and barked at the door until Dad was asleep. That night the ground had soaked and the trees had pulsed with the winds as the roots slowly tore free of the earth. Let's say none of those fell on the house. All right. In this storm, the trees were already falling. This didn't solve anything. Hold on. I'm going to add one more thing here. None fell on the house. None fell on the house that night. That was the night Luma's eyes turned pale blue. Okay, there we go. I had something weird in there and creepy. In this storm, the trees were already falling. This doesn't solve anything, Tamara shouted. It was raining so hard she accidentally sucked some water up her nose. Got a spelling error there. Sucked some water up her nose and choked. As she regained herself, she saw the mudslides overtaking the highway. Tamara lashed out at the dog. "Don't you kill my daddy. Don't do it. I'll make you leave if you do." Luma went on barking. Maybe the beloved dog was willing to give up her home to be done with Mr. Reese and his reign of terror for good. All right. Asphalt broke away in big chunks behind the struggling truck and washed away on both sides of the disintegrating highway. More trees collapsed under the mass as the pieces of the road slid down into gullies and ravines. Looks like Kavanaugh writes, followed me about 30 minutes ago. I apologize for not seeing that sooner, but I appreciate the follow. All right. It appeared the world was crumbling away behind her dad. And that needs to be lowercase because it's her dad, not Dad. And gaining on him as he still climbed the hill through the torrential downpour. Did he see the danger? He had to. Was he afraid? Did he have any idea that this was his fault for how he treated his family? Did he know what their dog was capable of? There was no way he would allow something more powerful than him to remain in the home if he knew. If he did. Let's say if he did know. I think that needs to be clearer. All right. Part of her, a small part that was full of shame for Tamara, kind of wanted her daddy to be gone for good. Maybe even if it made her mom sad. Even if it cost them the house and everything. Dead men don't hit. They don't lie. They don't break promises. Don't kill my daddy. Tamara threw herself at Luma and splashed right through the powerful creature. She slid along the muddy height and spilled over the edge, seeing the remains of the highway far below tilt into view. She did not scream or cry, everything in her locked up in mortal fear as she went over with nothing solid to hold on to. Luma tore her vengeful blue eyes away from the truck and locked solid jaws on the rubbery edge of Tamara's raincoat. The girl whipped around in open space and nearly folded out of the sleeves of her coat. She unlocked in time to hug herself. Let's say she unlocked her muscles. She unlocked her fear-frozen muscles in time to hug herself to keep from falling away. She was quite thankful all the rain and mud would hide that she had wet herself. The dog found traction in the mud that no natural animal could ever achieve. Even still, Tamara flipped upside down in her jacket. She was not strong enough to hold up her own weight under these conditions. She thought about how very sad and alone her mother would be. Luma melted out of her dog form and washed through the air as a serpent-like wave. She looped down and washed Tamra upward, back onto the bluff and several feet away from the failing edge. Despite everything, Tamra held on to her rain slicker. That was good. Mom could not afford a new one. Luma, a dog again, stood quietly next to her human. She was back to drenched fur and smelling like wet dog. Let's say her eyes had turned a muddy brown. Let's say it turned from blue to a muddy brown. Tamra started to shake. Her eyes lighted on the top of the next high hill where the lights from Daddy's truck vanished over the top, alive, well, and away. She burst into tears and sobs that shook her entire body. Luma sat still and quiet, dipping her snout just a little. Tamra wrapped her soaked, wet dog in a hug and cried into the rich smell of the animal's fur. By the time Tamra calmed down, the storm had dropped to a weak drizzle. She leaned on her dog as they returned home, muddy, wet, and all alive.